Dealing with difficult people, managing conflict, bloody-mindedness, and other intercommunicational difficulties at home and at work. Maybe your problem people are at work. They could be your clients, your manager, or your colleagues. Perhaps you live with your problem people. They might be your partner, flatmates, your parents or in-laws, maybe even your children. Or maybe your problem people are your neighbours, people providing services for you, your local council, your MP, or your children's teachers even. We all have to deal with difficult people at some stage. Sometimes we ourselves are even the difficult person. The information in this short video is intended to be practical, giving you a strategic overview plus tactics and tools to deal with difficult situations and difficult people. You should be able to know what is really going on to be able to analyze it out, communicate your wants and needs, negotiate with more confidence and greater ease, and employ and develop positive, appropriate conflict resolution skills by the end of it. These diagrams come from the book Dealing with Difficult People by Joy Sylvia. It is available from Amazon.com. You can simply type in the title and author and you will have access for purchasing the ebook or paperback book. If you are attending one of Joy's short workshops or seminars, you will most likely be provided with a free copy of the ebook. Okay, let's start by looking at what is going on for you and your difficult person. Attacking the problem from the right perspective is really important. Where you are on the interpersonal development staircase will not only determine how you will perceive the problem, but also how you will deal with the problem. Before you try to deal with a difficult person and situation, you need to have a good idea where both you and your antagonist are before you start pulling tactics and tools out of the box to deal with the problem. You can be dependent, independent, or interdependent. The aim is to be at the top step 3, interdependence. It's all about attitude and the relationship you are prepared to build. It's about you cooperating and combining your talents with that other person. Walking your talk. Always lead by example when dealing with difficult people. Actions do speak louder than words. If your body language or tone say something different from your words will not be believed. You must walk your talk. Keeping the moral high ground. Staying above the line is about positive attitude. Being truly accountable and taking responsibility for your actions. Always being 100% honest and being respectful, using your manners and taking ownership. Going below the line is about blame and justification of your actions and words. Being resistant to taking suggestions and concepts on board. Remaining in a state of denial, using put-downs and rejection to gain power and control. Having the right attitude often makes the difference between winning and losing. It's a sad fact that when we are constrained by feeling bad, feeling angry, feeling thwarted, the right attitude often goes out the window. Fear of losing something, anger at perceived unfairness and injustice often make us difficult for others and make it difficult for us to hear others. These strong emotions, with their other cousins, jealousy and powerlessness, can turn us into spiteful, ungrateful, and generally nasty, mean-spirited beings who simply don't stand a chance of communicating effectively, let alone maintaining the moral high ground. Instead, make sure you are generous of spirit. The key to dealing with difficult people and difficult situations is to be willing to communicate, talking things through, being open and transparent, having no secrets, using a win-win perspective. We can do this by learning how to deal with combat situations, learning how to make good decisions, by being inclusive, being fair, just and good, doing the right thing, problem solving and decision making together, being prepared to cooperate, being a team player, following through and leading only by example. Act on your beliefs. Trust, honesty, truth, kindness, respect and fairness are good ones to measure your communication on. Active listening takes time at first, but it is a skill that can be developed. When people know you are really listening to them, they usually can't help but open up more and are far less stressed in their communication with you. This in turn means they are less likely to be as difficult as they would have been otherwise. The trick about active listening is to concentrate on what the other person is saying and why they might be saying it. You need to be clear in your own mind about what the real issues are for that person, their thoughts and feelings, overt and covert, around that issue. Plus, you need to be aware of omissions. That is what is not being said, the hidden agenda. What thoughts and feelings are being suppressed or unrecognized by that person? Also, while doing all of this, you need to suspend judgment. That means not jumping to conclusions. Listening with empathy is the most effective way you can listen to another person. Notice their emotions. Ask yourself, what is this person feeling? Check that you are not adding your own baggage. Make sure you are seeking to really understand, to get behind the actual words that are being said. Just really listen. Getting your point of view across is often another hard aspect of dealing with your difficult person. First, you have to get them to want to listen to you. Building the emotional bank account, developing respect and trust, and listening to them will help. Then you have to somehow get your point of view across. This technique is one that will considerably increase your chances of getting your point of view across if you use it appropriately. I strongly recommend that if your difficult person includes your children or work colleagues, then make sure that they are armed with this technique too. Remember, if your point of view is important to you, then make sure that you do your homework. Don't just leave it to chance. Treat it like a project. Be prepared. Have all the information you need. Work out what you're going to say and be prepared for questions. When it's time to deliver your point of view, do it from a perspective of positiveness. Make sure that they are aware of the positive impact it will have on them, on you, on the community. Keep it simple and finish on a strong and positive note. No one likes being criticized. It doesn't matter how constructive the criticism is. No one likes it. My advice is be very careful when and how you give any criticism, and never ever criticize someone who has just criticized you. It's never going to be an effective way to communicate. Learn the 3 stages of dealing with criticism off by heart. Listen to them. Listen carefully to what that person has to say to you. Let them know that you have understood it. Remember, first understand the other person before trying to get your point of view across. And the third point is dealing with it. Thank them and say what you have learnt from it, or at least let them know that you are going away to think it over. If you repeat back to the person in your own words the feelings and concerns you've heard them express, they will know that you have got the message that they wanted to give. Remember, that does not mean you necessarily agree. It means you heard and understood it well enough to repeat it back to them. Negative stress affects every aspect of our lives. It makes us feel confused, powerless, and out of control. And then we get into a negative cycle of behaviour. We blob out, hit the junk food, the booze, we isolate ourselves, become depressed or more anxious, we become aggressive or withdrawn, we use unsafe alcohol or drug use patterns, unsafe sex even. We get into the I don't care, I can't be bothered attitudes. We are always looking for an argument or sympathy and the like. Or we're getting into some other style of self-destructive behaviour. Now, if this is you, you need to deal to it. If this is your difficult person, you need to try and be understanding, and you need to try not to add to the trauma and the drama. When dealing with difficult people and difficult situations, there are 4 key aims. We need to build effective communication practices with them. That's number 1. Number 2 is we want to prevent future conflict from building. The third is that we want to resolve the current conflict before it gets further out of hand. And the fourth is probably the most important. It helps if we can understand why the difficult person is behaving as they are. To my mind, a developing conflict situation is not dissimilar to a Category 5 cyclone emerging. There is a saying that you get out of life what you put in. Well, history, people involved, the social environment it is happening in, and the actual issues involved is what's going in for a conflict situation. What we get coming out is polarization of attitudes and ideas, escalation of feelings, tempers and wrath, threats and stereotyping. It's become a very toxic cocktail. To take the wind out of its sails, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself and work with the other person on. 1. What is actually happening? What are the feelings, the history, the events and the behaviour all about? Who are all the people or the factions involved? What brought the situation to the surface? Why now? Why is it a problem right now? What are the issues and the goals and the needs of all the people who are involved? How can the situation and concerns be broken down into manageable and solvable parts? The levels of conflict cycles goes like this. It starts with discomfort. Nothing is done, so it moves on to incidents. Nothing is done, it moves on to misunderstandings. Nothing is done, it moves on to tension. Nothing is done, it moves into total chaos and crisis. 3 key points for this are: 1. Conflict should never be allowed to get past discomforts. 2. When it gets to crisis, you are dealing with a rupture in the relationship. And 3. Always intervene sooner rather than later. Dealing with other people's anger can sometimes be easier than dealing with our own. But the key points of dealing with our own anger are to acknowledge it, try and understand it, look at where it came from, look at why we get angry about those sorts of things, accept it, and then move on. Rachel was a young and very troubled teen I worked with years ago. This was her project on dealing with other people's anger. 1. You have to learn to control your own anger before you can accept other people's. 2. Let the other person let their anger out. Hear them out. 3. When they are letting their anger out, keep your points of view to yourself. 4. Try and talk to them and find out what the real problem is. Ask questions and help them solve it. 5. Apologize if appropriate. Tell them what you have learnt from the situation, from the experience. This diagram provides a series of tactics that can be helpful for dealing with difficult people and difficult situations. There are many more strategic pathways, tactics and tools, real-life stories and other commentary to help you with your difficult person and situations in the Dealing with Difficult People, Managing Conflict, Bloody-mindedness and Other Intercommunicational Difficulties at Home and Work book by Joy Sylvia. We hope this short presentation has given you a bit more confidence and some ideas to run with in the meantime before you open your ebook. Dealing with Difficult People, Managing Conflict, Bloody-mindedness and Other Intercommunicational Difficulties at Home and at Work by Joy Sylvia is available in both ebook and paperback format through Amazon.com.